have something really good. The hot topic in the news this week's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight we're going to have a panel discussion about teenagers shooting each other at parties. What's going on in Houston right now? What is going on with these teenagers? We don't understand. We're all criminal defense lawyers and we defend the Constitution, but we also worry about our society and what's going on. What do these kids expect? Why are they doing this? What about the safety of all of us? I have three great young lawyers in the courtroom, in the studio tonight that want to talk about this issue. We have Victoria Earthsofaglo, we have Equata Turner, and we have Justin Harris. So we're going to just jump right in and talk about the teenage shootings. We're going to first talk about the one that happened in Cypress. We think it was November 9th, 2013. Cypress, Texas is a suburb of Houston, Harris County. So whenever they get the shooter or the shooters, they will be prosecuted in the Harris County criminal justice system downtown at 1201 Franklin. So we're going to start with Victoria. She's pulled some of the information out of the news, out of the headlines, to just give us a background of what's happened in case you haven't watched the news. But we really want to stimulate discussion about why we think these children are doing this and what can we do as parents, as citizens. What can we do about it? What can we do to help them? And what type of punishment do you think they should get? So Victoria, please tell us about the Cypress shooting according to the news.
Thank you, Vivian, for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure to be here. First off, I want to say, my deepest sympathies to all the families that had children there that night. And there were many people that were injured, and especially to the two families that are mourning the loss of their children. There were two teens that were actually killed that night, a 16-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy. So this was a incident that happened in Cypress. It's the Katy Independent School District, is the school district in Houston with the high school there. And there was a little girl, she was having her 18th birthday party, and her mom was actually at the home. Early investigations show us that the party had been posted on a variety of social media websites. So in other words, it had been advertised on social media like Instagram and Twitter. So at some point during the evening, the officers estimate there may have been even 100 people there. And they were all young teens, young adults. So there was maybe one or two shooters. They're not clear yet as to how many people were actually involved in the shooting. They did arrest two boys. One has been released since. One is still in custody. But they opened fire, and they opened fire for a good 3 to 5 minutes. There was one eyewitness, one young gentleman that said that the shooting happened for about 5 minutes, and neighbors said that they could hear about 10 to 12 gunshots. And many people were injured. There were about 19 people that were injured. One person has lost the ability to walk. And the little girl who actually lived there, whose party it was actually outside when the shooting began, tried to get into the house, and the door was locked. So they ran down the street, her and her cousin ran down the street and called 911. Police were there in very little time, within 5 minutes, and it was just sheer chaos. There were people running around, people bleeding, people in shock. It was a tragedy. It's a tragic incident, and it's been interesting to see some of the reactions in the community about the shooting, and I'm sure we're going to get into that, but on a whole, that's what happened. That was the incident, and it's still pending further investigation. And I thought one comment that the sheriff made was very interesting. He said it's a horrible combination of immaturity, access to a firearm, and the inability to control oneself. Their investigation suggests that the initial shots were fired in a celebratory fashion, which I thought was interesting because there were bullet holes in the ceiling.
Wow.
So I don't know what kind of celebratory fashion that would be to fire a gun in a house for a birthday party. Maybe they were warning shots. I don't know. But it's a terrible incident, and it appears the shooters were young.
All right. I want to ask Equator Turner now. Equator, do you have any comments to add about what you've read or researched?
Well, what I can add is that the celebratory shooting, I can understand what that is. That's where they just so happen they pull out their guns. It's reckless. It's really reckless. It's dangerous. I mean, it's a house full of guests. It's a house full of people, and they're just pulling out their guns and they just shooting in the ceiling. You know, they think they're not going to hurt anyone, but they don't know who's upstairs.
Right.
And a bullet travels, so you don't know where that bullet is going to go. So the celebratory matter, I understand. I don't condone it, but I understand understand what it is. And as far as the shooter, I know one of the guys was Randy Young, and what I read, I'm sorry, Willie Young. What I read with Mr. Young is that he wasn't even at the party. His mother found out that her daughter was at the party, so she sent Willie over there to pick up her daughter. So that was the only reason why Mr. Young was even at the party, and he was one of the ones that was arrested by the sheriff department. And however, about 6 people wrote letters saying that he was innocent, and that's the one that they let go. But however, they wanted, I know they held a press conference with Quanell X and Sheila Jackson Lee, and they wanted an apology from the representative. From Adrian Garcia, and he wouldn't give an apology in regards to Willie Young's arrest. But he was cleared of any wrongdoing in this matter.
How long was he in jail? Do you know? Was it a couple of days?
It was a couple of days, and what he actually said, I do have an article on this because he spoke to community leaders on the deadly shooting. He says, once again, it's regretful that Young had to go through this experience. He says that basically we felt we had the truth when they arrested him.
Now, why do you feel that Adrian Garcia would not apologize for the arrest?
I feel that he wouldn't apologize, but then he'll be saying that his office is liable for that arrest. With the apology, they probably can come back and sue him. I'm not going to apologize if I was in he's an elected official.
But I believe there's immunity when a law enforcement agent does their job, and as soon as you find out that someone is innocent and you let them go, there is no unlawful restraint, there's no illegal detention, so he has no liability.
So he has no liability.
Let's scratch that one. So now, why would he not apologize? He has a legal department. He knows that. If that was the legal reason, he'd say, under the advice of my legal counsel, I can't comment on that. So that's not the answer.
Pride.
Pride. Okay. All right, so Justin, let's weigh in on it. Justin's been in a very stressful trial all week and today, and so he's coming in having to exhale, but we're going to make him still be a lawyer tonight and give us your opinion.
Well, I do think that there's liability associated, but I think it might be political liability. I think you said that he's a politician. And if he comes out and says, I'm sorry for this, whoever runs against him in his next campaign is just going to play that over and over and over on their campaign ads. I don't know. I also think it's a pride thing. You know, no disrespect to the police officers who are watching, and I have many police officers in my family. I don't mean any disrespect against them either, but police officers don't seem to ever like to admit that they make mistakes. And we've seen not just people arrested wrongfully, but people who have been killed wrongfully by police officers. We talked last time I was on the show, was a couple months ago, we talked about a man who had a car accident in, I believe, North Carolina. Right. He was disoriented, bloodied. He went to someone's front door, a woman, and she shot him cold. The police officers shot him when she called the police. And they're not going to apologize for that.
Right. Well, there is liability in that.
And there's liability for apologizing.
And I believe in that one, which was significant, was that they actually charged the police officer.
Have they charged him?
They did.
No, they had charged him, which is unusual. In Texas, he would have never been charged.
Right.
Never.
Especially in Harris County. He would have never been charged. So he was actually charged. Now, he'll probably win, but he was charged. And so that was what was really significant. And they didn't wait on it. I mean, it went to the grand jury pretty quickly, and he was charged because that young man was football player who was a star and was doing nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How many young black men who are not football players and don't get national attention get shot by police every day and don't get that?
Hundreds.
And
Many.
much less don't get any
Hundreds.
acknowledgement, any kind of regret statement, certainly not an apology.
And I know Adrian Garcia personally. I'm in an organization with him. I think he's a fantastic man, and I admire him a lot. I am disappointed, though, that he did not figure out a legal way to apologize to that family. I think one of the problems in society is we've gotten so high and mighty that nobody apologizes, and everybody is on either you're right or you're wrong. Either you're the criminal or you're the good guy. And people are all in between. And so sometimes our children, even our teenagers, will learn from our integrity if, as the sheriff, you could figure out a legal way to say, we arrested the wrong person, we followed our leads, we affected the wrong person. Had that been a relative of mine that was wrongfully arrested, I would want the department to apologize. We apologize if it hurt his feelings. We were doing our job. We would do it again because we followed our leads. But as soon as we found out it wasn't him, we let him go. And I would not want my daughter arrested wrongfully. And if so, I would want someone to say they're sorry. We made a mistake. And his record will be expunged without him having to pay a lawyer $2,000 or $3,000. Because unfortunately, this young man if he's never been arrested before, which I think he hadn't been, he has fingerprints down there now. He has a booking photo. It's gone through the National Crime Information System, and he has to pay a lawyer to expunge that wrongful arrest. And that doesn't necessarily have to be. And they could get their legal department to do that.
And these will never be expunged.
Right, what's out there in the
news
stream
stories
of
will always be out there. If someone searches for his name, a potential employer, maybe a girlfriend 20 years from now, and they see that he was arrested and charged in this.
Right. I mean, I believe, and I wish I saw nobility in public office sometimes, like have your legal department draw up a contract with them and say, we wrongfully got you, we thought we had you, we will, if you don't sue us, but I don't think they can. I don't think they have a ground to stand on, but we will, if you release us from any wrongdoing, we will pay for the expunction. Mm-hmm. We'll do the expunction ourselves because we shouldn't have done it.
And even
and that could even be a gag order like they do in civil cases. Once you sign a release, people don't talk about it anymore.
Exactly.
But to me, you need to right the wrong. And what bothers me in society is that, yes, there's a lot of crime, but the people who are in power don't always make the right decisions and don't set good examples as to how to right the wrong. There was a right way to make the black community feel like that young man, Willie Young's life mattered. If the police found out that he was actually taking people to the hospital, assisting people who were injured, pulled a gun to try to defend the people who basically got in harm's way. Because if he went to pick up his little sister, he did not have to get out the car other than to go look for his little sister. So he got in harm's way. I believe, I don't know anything about it, but just dealing in criminal law for as long as I have, because he was an outsider, because he had not been at the party, he looked like he was a little older than the rest of those teenagers, people just assumed he was the shooter. Mm-hmm. Because he was probably one of the last ones in, and they knew that, they figured that must have been the one who did it, the guy who looked strange. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of assumptions happen. Because as you know, and I know, and from the reports, 20-something people got shot, so everybody was scurrying. And on the celebratory gunfire, that would just be very offensive to me, for somebody to shoot in my house. I mean, just think of how expensive that is to fix a hole in the house. Mm-hmm. But it's unfortunate now that we have teenage parties now where, hell, if my daughter's 18, if she has a party, everybody's got to be searched now. And that's a shame to invite somebody to a party, everybody's got to be searched.
And they had a bouncer there patting people down at a suburban household party. And I think before we started, Victoria, you pointed out that was kind of unusual. But what's also really unusual, I think we're starting to see more of this, is they advertise the party on social media. And
that's the problem. Yeah, anybody comes. And you really have to, I gave my daughter a Sweet 16 party at a big function. And what I did not do, I had a police officer there in uniform. And I think that kept a lot of the mental stuff down, because she'd had another party where the facility had a security guard, but he was in plain clothes. Mm-hmm. And for children, they need to see somebody in
with
authority. And something happened. A purse got stolen. Mm-hmm. Some things happened where there was a security guard the same, but he was kind of mostly sitting in his car texting. He wasn't really standing up looking authoritative. When I had HPD there, you know, he was looking authoritative, and so less happened psychologically. So you do have to have not just a bouncer, but you actually have, with these kids, you have to have somebody in uniform, and you really need two.
I had two at my party.
Yeah, you have
when
to
I
have
had my
two.
party, I had two at them. And I didn't have just a bouncer at the door. I had two uniform officers that I had paid. And I'm not going to tell which agency, but they both were there, and they walked around and they watched it. They checked everybody at the door, and they made sure. They also, one of them even mingled around inside to see what everyone was doing. And I had a party at a small venue.
God, serious parties. Don't call me next time.
Seriously.
Well, my daughter had a fabulous party, and a lot of people came. I didn't even think about guns, though. And this was just, she's only 18, so this was just 2 years ago. I wasn't, well, it was 3 years ago, because she's about to be 19. But I wasn't even thinking about guns. I just wanted to make sure if a fight broke out or if something broke out, you know, we had a police officer there. And I had a HPD officer that I know, and I paid him. But I knew that he would, you know, stand guard. He has children. Teenage children, but you really can't have a teenage party with just a bouncer, because bouncers don't usually have uniforms on, and kids need to see a police uniform, and they need to see two officers, because if something breaks up, one cop is not enough.
Right.
They need to see visible guns. They need to see
And we need to
taser.
search them now. I mean, it's unfortunate that we can't go to airports. We can't do any of the things I could do as a teenager and a young adult anymore. You can't, everybody has to be searched. You can't run through the airport and just jump on the plane. I mean, it's just a shame that we live, you know, we have this Second Amendment that everybody wants to defend, but it's really held us all hostage. I mean, we're all held hostage. I have said many times that I'm freer when I go to Europe on vacation, because I know that they don't have the right to bear arms. I can go out at 11, 12 at night in a strange land where I don't speak the language, and I feel safe, because I feel the most someone's going to do is stab me or fight me. You know what I mean? And I think I can handle that.
You stay arm's length away.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get too close to anybody. But I'm not really worried about a society that's packing. And although I know the right wing keeps saying we should all be packing so that we can defend, but if someone has to jump on you, you can't. I mean, if we go out to the parking lot and it's and teenagers go in packs and gangs, okay? Gang in a loose way. I don't mean a civilized gang, but I just mean it's always 2 or 3 of them in a car, and they've already plotted what they're going to do. They're already high. You can have all the guns you want to. You cannot outman them. And as we see in the news, when there's when someone does outman a cop, I mean a teenager or an attack, they're usually cops that are not on duty. They're people that are already trained to respond real quickly when something happens. You know, like if a car gets jacked and it just happens to be a cop that's not at work that day. They usually will set off a round on somebody. But normal people can't react that quickly, because they're not, even if they have a gun.
Well, and that's what you kind of have here with the celebratory gunfire. From what I've read, the injuries happened and the deaths happened when someone didn't know where that gunfire was coming from, and they just started shooting back. So if we all had guns and someone starts shooting up in the air, and then we all pull out our guns and start shooting everybody around us, no one's safer. We're all being, like you said, held hostage.
A massacre. That's exactly what it would have been. Everyone would have been dead. I would have been dead. You would have been dead.
Absolutely.
And the thing that's difficult for parents is these parents, unfortunately, have buried their children. Many other parents have medical bills or recoveries that have to happen, if at all, and they're angry. But then the parents of whomever ever gets arrested for this is going to say, well, my kid didn't mean it. They were just, you know, so nobody's going to be happy in this situation. All these lives are destroyed, whether it's the shooter's parents and families' lives or it's the victims. And so I just wish that we had a society that wasn't so pro-gun, because now we have a society where everybody wants to use them. You know, 50 years ago, when I was growing up, everybody had guns. I mean, my dad could drive his truck like the rifleman with a rifle on the back of it, and nobody stole it. And we probably played with guns as kids, but we weren't really thinking about killing each other. You know, I mean, it just wasn't a part of our paradigm. Yeah, carrying it to hurt somebody. And we might hate people and want to fight them, but we just want to fight them. We didn't want to kill them. And and if we did, I guess we were scared of the consequences. It's just a new world.
Yeah, it is a new world. And I think the problems that people this age are facing nowadays have changed. There's another story in the news. It was a little bit older, but it was about a young man from Houston who had been bullied and shot one of the bullies, the group of boys that were coming. And, you know, bullying has probably been a problem in schools for a very long time, but I think this adds a new dimension to it. And I totally agree with you on the whole Second Amendment and right to bear arms. I think that as an adult, you had the foresight to make those plans for your daughter's party. It's interesting because there was a mother at this party too. There was an adult at this party, but I just think they didn't anticipate that it would become so big. And now kids are using Facebook. You know, think about how many times, if you know children that create evites on Facebook and they don't even think about it. But, you know, those things can get way out of control, obviously.
Well, and it's a private household. So if it's like any suburban house that I know, I grew up in the Cypress area, there's an entrance and a front door and a back door. One of the reports that I read, the garage door, the aluminum garage door, was bowed out because so many people ran to the garage and they got shoved up against the door, and it's actually bent outward. So that's why public places have occupancy limits, because they know the number of entrances and exits, and people have to get out like that from a fire, gunfire, whatever. There's enough exits for people to get out. Well, this turned into, you know, if there had been someone really wanting to hurt people or everybody had a gun, this would have been shooting fish in a barrel, because they would have all been holed up in the garage with nowhere to go.
Let's think about another element. This happened at a home, so the people who got killed and the people who got shot can sue the homeowner's insurance.
That's true.
So there's a whole different issue. There's civil liability in this because her daughter and others put it on Twitter. They advertised to come. So these people who came in were invited. They weren't rejected at the door. And so if one of my children got hurt there, I would be suing the homeowners to pay those medical bills, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yes.
So now there's a whole nother dimension and reason why parents should be have a duty to make sure that, because the problem with the Instagram and Twitter is most parents are not aware of that. I mean, like I repeat, I'm 55, so if my daughter puts something on Instagram, I have no idea. All I know is I've told her on Facebook and Twitter, I don't even really know what Instagram is, other than pictures. Don't advertise when we leave town, go out of town, or anything, because, you know, we don't want people just, you know, coming in. Luckily, my brother's next door, and we are in an old neighborhood where everybody's watching each other's houses. So don't get any bright ideas, because my neighbor will be watching you. She doesn't work. But I tell her, don't do that, because that's not safe.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that there've been a lot of comments online, especially people in Cypress, and they've been saying some interesting things. They've been saying things like the neighborhood has plummeted in terms of the community and the population, that there's a lot of lower socioeconomic status type people, a lot of people from New Orleans, Katrina victims, and there was a lot of, and you know, I really despise this phrase, but it was used frequently, Katrina trash.
I never even heard that expression. Is that a new one, or is that one they've been using?
I just read it today. It just kind of floored me, but the fact that people would use this tragic incident to make comments like this, I think, is directly related to the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
The problem with guns and children and schools and lack of education and lack of community, and because, you know, if this is a single mother and she has no idea about Instagram, like so many mothers don't, and has no idea about the impact of these invitations and how many people are going to be at her home, where do we step in as a society? How will we help our children? How many times will we see incidents like this and continue to say it's an isolated incident with one teen who went crazy or went bad or whatever? Maybe the incidents are not so isolated. Maybe there's, you know, maybe there's symptoms of a bigger epidemic, and I don't think it's an epidemic of refugee victims from New Orleans. I think it's a different problem.
The epidemic of the heart and of the soul, I think.
Yes, so I wanted to throw that out there too, because it wasn't just one or two, it was many of these similar type
And
comments.
what type of people do you think are making those comments? Do you think that they're young people that are bored? Because most young people don't read the Chronicle, and that's probably where you got that from, right?
It's actually on ABC website.
ABC. I just don't think many teenagers like 18 and 19 go to ABC and the Chronicle. So if they're not doing that, help me think of what age group is probably putting those ugly comments.
I think I know. Yeah, I think I would say it's mostly homeowners in that area, because most of the comments seem to circle around the fact that their property has either diminished in value because of this population, or the neighborhood has gone down in their estimation because of this population. And so there were people that commented about, when I first bought my house here 20 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's older people. I think it's people probably, like Equator said, 50s, homeowners.
50 plus. I've seen some of the comments on some of the websites, and as I was telling him that I wanted to sign on. I'm like, I'm going to sign on and click to Houston and say something back to these, because some of the comments are just horrible. I think there were 180 comments in regards to the one. It's the one in which the community leaders addressed the gun violence issue. There was 180 comments, and before I printed out the article, I scrolled down to look at some of the comments, and I had to just go back up because they were. I was appalled. I mean, it was just horrible, the things that people would say, and some of them they would, you would see that it's been deleted because of the tone. You know how the administrator, the nature,
inappropriate or whatever,
it's inappropriate. They delete it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, how could you actually put something on Click to Houston on a comment section regarding someone and regarding at this time? I mean, I know firsthand how this feels. In January, my only brother was murdered. So I know firsthand how this feels and how the family. I mean, it doesn't, because the guys was arrested, it doesn't make us feel any better on the other side. We still had to bury my brother. And so for someone to put negative comments hurt. Sometimes you ought to think what's coming out of your mouth before you open it up. Because the things that they write on the website, they can't take back. Like my mother always, Mrs. Irvin said, her aunt always says, make your words short and sweet, because you may have to eat them. So you never know where they may come back, and you may have to eat those words back that they've put on their website. That's just horrible. They have families. No matter what, they have families.
Yeah.
Well, I heard something on the radio that was kind of getting at that it was based on concern for generations right now who use social media to contact each other, that there's something about when you say something that's hurtful to someone and they're face to face and you actually see them react with like hurt and pain and embarrassment.
Yes.
Or shame, because you're sending out someone sends you a private message and you send it to everyone in the school or something. They don't see that person's hurt on their face, and so it's easier for us to continue to hurt each other behind the veil of a computer screen or a cell phone.
That is such an interesting comment. I'm glad you said that. I kind of always was thinking that, but I'm not a psychologist, because it just appears it's kind of like road rage. People can say things behind the wheel of a car because you're not exactly face to face. But if you get face to face, they'll kind of back down. And it's kind of like two-faced people. When you're growing up, you hear things, in the community. I heard you've been saying this about me. But once you get in someone's face, they kind of back down. Because people really don't, I guess we're still good at heart. We really don't want to hurt each other. But yet we have such a mean spirit.
It's easy to do.
And that's what's so hurtful about this social media. It's so easy to be a mean person. But I think it starts dominating a lot of your thoughts. If you're doing a lot of tweeting and Instagramming and Facebooking in a mean way, I think it dominates your thoughts. And I think that makes you a kind of a meaner person. I've noticed that with some of the teenagers.
My question is, why would you want to be a mean person? Somebody help me out. There can't be anybody who can say that Equator's been mean to them or, said something ugly. Why would you want to be a mean person? Somebody help me.
Well, let's talk about this too. It's not really about that. It's about the social media and how it leads, because the social media and the meanness is leading to teenagers shooting teenagers too.
True.
And bullying teenagers. So we have a problem with them doing that. And with the older people, because I think a lot of it sometimes is racist. It's like,
that's what I wanted to say, but I was nice.
Well, we're having a candid discussion. It's the underlying racist, because you can't, it's an opportunity to like be KKK, wear a white cloak. You can say whatever you want to say, because with all those comments about Katrina and the neighborhood changing, that's just racist. I mean, they're really wanting to say the black people have moved into the neighborhood, they're going down, and I can understand them feeling that way, but we have to also be open-minded in this society and realize that white teenagers are taking out whole schools and whole people.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, it's not just our problem. That might be a black problem, but it's a society. What I like about your words, Victoria, and I think with Queta and Justin, we realize it's a society problem. That's why we're talking about this.
Violence is.
And violence is a society problem. And we need to talk about that.
And these are our children. And your child does not live in isolation among one race only.
Right.
But, and the other thing is, there's not, unless the articles I've read, there's nothing that mentions anyone's skin color. Nothing that mentions anyone being from New Orleans.
Right.
Nothing that mentions anyone being from from New Orleans to Houston because of Katrina.
No.
These are just completely ignorant comments. They're making nothing but assumptions and running with that, and all what they don't realize they're doing is they're wearing their heart on their sleeves and showing us what they really are.
And the thing that's painful is this. Let's think about our society. We have all of these older racists in Cyprus that are probably at work, looking at the news or whatever, taking a break, putting these mean racist things. They don't have a gun, but they have a pen. They have a typewriter. It's the same thing with our children. Our children are mean. They have a gun. They don't understand the consequences, so they use them. It's mean from bottom, from young, from gun-toting young people, all the way to older people that are just mean and doing it with a typewriter. It's that same spirit that we have of hate and destruction.
I had the impression that it was, I feel like these people are gun-toting people too.
Yes,
because of all the comments, nobody said anything about guns. It was like they were willing to comment on just about everything else except the thing that actually caused the problem. And how this thing, and I understand, I appreciate people that, we live in Texas and it's a very gun-friendly society, and I can respect that. But if you can't even admit or speak about the fact that there is a problem with guns and young people in our society, then I think that's just ignorant and ill-based. So.
And the problem is that since the adults have the guns, they're in the household, the children have the guns. And that's the problem with guns. You can't just limit it to certain use and certain classes of people using it. Everybody's going to use them. Because we've said it's acceptable. Now, Equator, there was a second shooting, November 16th, that you read about, that you wanted to share what's public information about. Tell us about that. That one was in Southwest Houston.
Yes, it was. On this one, I found very little information. I found very little information. Victoria found very little information also. This is in regards to a shooting that was at a house party, too. It was another house party. So there is, hint, hint, don't throw a house party. You're going to throw a party.
Now, you got to have extra security, and you have to search everybody that comes in so they don't have guns.
I'm throwing a party at a venue. It's not going to be at my house. There's no more house parties. No more holes in the ceiling. This was in the southwest side of town. It was actually, they said it was the 4400 block of Tiffany near Quinton. They didn't give very much information, but I knew this from watching the news. I didn't find it actually in an article. I knew it was between, because they locked both schools down. They locked Madison High School down and Yates High School down. This was between the Madison and Yates. It was a shooting in between those two schools. Apparently there had been some guys that had some rifts or some things in between each other, and just after midnight, someone started shooting. When they came, they said they found one teen, Mr. Terry. He was found dead from gunshot wounds. And then there was another teen about a couple of blocks over. He was shot in the thigh. But the student that was shot, that was murdered, was from Yates High School. And Yates High School is in the 3rd Ward area, and Vivian and I both live in that same area. And the neighbors, everyone says that at the party, they said every time that a gunshot would go off, they all was crying and huddling, trying not to get hit. They said it was...
The kids at the party were crying?
Yes, the kids at the parties were crying. They said every time they would hear something or hear a shot, they would just all scream and cry. The witnesses said that a Chevy Impala fled the scene, and it went on Hiram Clark and then on West Orem. But they didn't find out anyone, and it was one son and a brother. He was killed. His sister is a 10th grader at Yates now. But there had no suspects at this time.
Well, the good thing about Crime Stoppers is if people find out or know, Crime Stoppers, I can vouch for this, they keep the identity anonymous. I've represented a lot of shooters in my 21 years, and they do not reveal how they find out. So you do need to, if you know anything about that, you do need to turn that in to Crime Stoppers anonymously to give that family some peace.
I mean, Crime Stoppers help out a lot. My secretary was beaten at a bus stop. She had a computer in her. Her new husband had just bought her computer, and she had it in her bag, not in her purse, and it was sticking up. And in the old neighborhood that my office was in, it was around Caroline, and I didn't know there was a lot of drug rehab places there where a lot of people are trying to get off heroin, a lot of methadone centers. And the guy just saw her at the bus stop and just beat her in the head. And he left, but Crime Stoppers actually...
Did he take her laptop?
Yes, he did. And Crime Stoppers paid for her medical bills.
Oh, wow.
They paid for her lost wages, because I had to fill out that information for her lost wages. So Crime Stoppers help the community. That's why every time I sign someone up for a deferred probation, and they have the $50 to Crime Stoppers, I always tell them that's an important figure, because Crime Stoppers not only help crimes, but they also help victims. of
I didn't know they
unknown
did that.
crimes.
That's great.
Yes, and because of that one, I knew about my secretary in that one, and when she got the paperwork, I helped her fill it out. I helped her get her medical bills, and I helped her with her lost wages because I was her employer. But also, when my brother was murdered, my mom in Mississippi was able to do the same thing. They paid for his burial costs. I was actually it was an organization in Mississippi because he didn't have insurance.
Well, let me stop you. I know in Texas there's also a crime victim compensation fund, which I believe is different from Crime Stoppers.
Is it different from
It's
Crime
different.
Stopper?
So
Okay,
the
then
one
that may be it
the
then.
one that's paying the bills, like for your secretary, that's the crime victim
Okay, then
compensation.
I thought it
fund.
was under. It said crime. I thought it came under Crime
Yeah,
Stoppers.
It's
under
crime
there.
victim. It says crime.
Okay.
Yeah, but the point, bottom line is there is a victim assistance program, and they
Under
reach
that.
out to victims
And they
of
reach out to the
crimes.
victims of crimes.
And so they just have to fill
under
out the
that
packet.
umbrella,
Okay.
and it helped.
It's something.
It's something.
That is good. That is good. So what do we do as a society? What do we do as parents or future parents? What do we do? Well, one of the things, like I said, I know is I will not have a young party. I will not having parties anymore without searching people. I'm just not doing it. I want everybody to have a good time inside the party. I mean, unless it's just a house party that I've just invited my friends over, like y'all. I mean, if it's a party that's open to the public, kind of, like at a venue, I'm having them searched. I'm just not going to take a risk on it, especially if it's at your house, because like I said, your homeowner's insurance is liable for it. So it's a greater burden on you.
I'm not having a house party. That's just
Okay.
point blank. I'm not having a house party. Anytime I throw up another party, it is going to be at a venue. I thought about throwing a house party for us all our new neighbors to come, and I'm like, now that I see the liability, and now that I see all the shooting, I know
But
I'm
Equator,
older.
but maybe that's the flip side. Maybe what we need is more house parties among neighbors, so that neighbors get to know each other and they watch out for each other. Now, maybe it shouldn't be inside your house. Maybe it should be outside, like a barbecue in the front yard. But I think one of the things we do need is a greater sense of community.
Yes, we do.
And I think that some of this racism that we hear might not be there if neighbors still welcomed people to the neighborhood with hey, I'm your neighbor, let's get to know each other. I think that we really should reach out to each other. I think that's one way that we can feel safer, we can understand each other a little bit better.
I agree with that. And I know that the investigation for this is still pending, but I don't think this was about a party. I think this was an opportunity seized, but I think that there was probably an underlying problem here. I think maybe the shooters knew someone at the house. Maybe there was some beef or something, and they just took this as an opportunity to make a move, to do something. So I think the solution is, well, I think it's complicated. It'd probably take a whole nother show, but I think part of the solution is maybe we ought to spend a little more time with our kids. And when I say we, I mean, hopefully parents, but the reality is some parents should not be parents. Some people should not be mentors for our young. And, I wish I could say that that's where we step in as a community or CPS or whoever to help provide for some of these young people. But I used to tutor at Yates High School when I was in college, and a lot of those kids have it very rough. A lot of those kids have parents that are not, many of them have wonderful parents and people in the community they can depend on, but I knew some young people who didn't have a functioning home. Some parents were not in the picture at all. I had some kids who had to pick up welfare checks so their mom wouldn't get it and spend it on drugs. I mean, those are problems that a young person at 17, 16, in my opinion, shouldn't have to deal with. Right. And it's very hard to become a productive member of society when you live in a neighborhood like that, when your worldview is limited because what you're getting at home is not sufficient, and you have a pawn shop on every corner and a liquor store and a gun store, no libraries. Even though you live right across the street from a major university in your neighborhood, that doesn't look the same. So I think, I think it's tragic, but I think that these are, I'm sad to say it, but I feel like they're just forgotten people. A lot of our young people are just forgotten people, and it's sad because we live in a first world community.
Right, first world community with first world technology that's educating our kids who are vulnerable mentally about doing wrong and bad. I mean, because you're doing something wrong if you have to, or maybe you feel like you're doing something wrong if you have to go get your welfare check out of the mailbox before your mother gets it. I mean, you know, that's a deception on the family for the protection of the family. And if you do that, I mean, that teaches you a societal value that we shouldn't have. But one of the solutions, I think Equator said, is she said we should spank our kids. Justin disagrees with that. But I think that some kids need
I don't have
spanking.
kids, so it's easy for me to say.
Yeah, but you know, the thing I've learned about kids is it's all kind of kids. Some kids you need to be violent with because they're violent, and so you have to have a psychological hold on them, and so you have to use violence first. There's other kids that violence will just melt their spirit, crack their spirit. So you have to know which kid it is. We have a caller that's called in. Caller, you're on. Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King.
Yes, I was just listening to the news. The ladies talking about the crime stuff, you know. And I would like to know what I can do to join that.
To join Crime Stoppers?
You know, yeah.
Do you have access to a computer?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, if you keep watching the show, at the end, my phone number will come up, 713-222-2019. That's my office number.
Sure.
And you can call my office, and my assistant will give you the number to Crime Stoppers.
It's 713.
It's
222.
222.
22. What else?
2019.
2019.
And just let her know that you want the number to Crime Stoppers because you want to volunteer. Now, what do you think, sir, that we can do about children in the children shooting children?
Oh, God. That's, I think it's going to have to be started at home, you know.
And one of the things
I think it should be started, it have to start at home.
That's true.
Yeah, because the parents need to have a little more control over what the children is doing, you know.
I agree. Thank you so much.
I have his Crime Stoppers number if he wanted it.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
We'll call the office and we'll get that for you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for calling. All right. Bye bye. You know, the tragedy is we always say it needs to start at home. Well, we know that. The problem is what Victoria highlighted. If you have no home and an aunt is raising you or a 80-year-old grandmother is raising you because, you know, your mother is or their grandchild had you and the child, you know, she's on crack or dope and you're just a place to live so CPS won't take it, you're not really being raised. You're being provided with shelter, but by somebody that's too old to really participate in your life in a meaningful way. So that's the problem. We have so many more kids in society who do not have normal dysfunctional families. like a normal dysfunctional single household, like my daughter was raised. That's just normal dysfunctional. But you know, they don't have anybody. Or if they do have someone, it's someone that has them, so CPS can't have them. You know, because CPS tries to, if they take a child out of the home, they try to place them with a relative. So it might be a relative just like the great gentleman that just called in that's, you know, not computer savvy, because you said you don't know how to call Crime Stoppers. I mean, you don't know how to look that up on the computer, so you don't have a computer. So you wouldn't know how to anticipate that your children are communicating completely on the computer, on their cell phone computer. So you can't even really anticipate their moves, you know, and know how to deal with it. And a lot of crimes now are cyber crimes over the internet, over their cell phones. They start there because you can have beef now because of what someone says about someone on Twitter and Instagram. My daughter's in college now, but when she was at home, her senior year, I mean, she would tell me about arguments and things, and she was depressed one time about some communications. I said, baby, you got to turn that stuff off. Stop looking at Facebook. Stop it. I mean, why do you care what people are thinking? It's just bringing you down. Stop it. Cut that stuff off. It's too much information. I said, it's just too much information in society. At certain points when I go home, I should know what you're thinking about me, Justin. I don't want to know. It's too much. Let's take another call. Caller, thank you for calling. You're on. What's your comment?
Oh, hello.
Hello.
This is Victor. Hold up, Malachi. Yes, I'm calling again. You said, what can you do to educate these children about hurting each other and doing all this? Well, I don't think there's nothing you can do because isn't the mainstream media down there, all these record companies promoting all this junk in that New Jack City and all that stuff?
So
And,
turn your radio or TV off down and just talk on the receiver. So you because of that. So do we just give up then?
no, you can't give up, but you know, like it's like you can't, you know, like y'all ain't gonna buck Beyonce and JC them and Snoop Dogg and all these fellas that's promoting this crap and all. You know, you sure not going against the major media. So, and then it's very little things for the children. You know, it's very little. And there's really no community leaders.
Right.
Really don't see that. Like, okay, take for instance the lottery couldn't come to the aid of the rainy day. The rainy day fund can come to the aid of the school district. When the rainy day fund is the lottery system, when you buy a ticket, say it supports the Texas school. You know, it's an assault on the public schools, right?
Right.
But it's nobody doing nothing. I mean, all y'all do is everybody do is just talk.
Right. Right. And let me just tell you this. I agree with you. It's a lot of talk, and that's why I produce this show and pay for it. So I'm doing more than talking, I'm paying. And second of all, we as criminal defense lawyers, we do it one kid at a time. We've paid for GEDs. We've represented people who had no money for free. I mean, we've done our part. And so, but this is a $4 million county. I mean, 4 million person county. So we can't do it all. But we're trying to put the information out so that people can do their part. We're doing ours, so don't think that we're not. We're not Cornell X. We're not on the TV. We don't have a public relations firm where we're getting paid to be on TV. But I am doing this to try to bring the information out to educate the community about the criminal justice system. Tonight, I normally have a guest that tells their crime story so we can talk about it, but sometimes that's difficult to get people to do that. So tonight, we're just having a discussion about what's going on in our community. And maybe one person will be touched to know their neighbor. And maybe you can learn, if you have a house party, to have a security guard and search the people, or if someone in your family does. And maybe you should learn to get on Twitter and Instagram and know what our kids are doing, because they stay so far ahead of us that we have to keep up with them. But thank you for your call.
Hold up, I'm not finished.
Okay. Well,
okay, now also, yeah, but see, if I had a heart spot, my son ain't but 5, so if back and then there's something wrong. But anyway, but back to this, like Cornell X, is he really a leader or is he a bounty hunter?
No comment. Let's say what we're going to do. So with your son, you're going to stay close to your son and watch him as he grows up so that he can have choices.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to, because you know, I'm 61, he's just 5.
Okay.
So 5, I'll be what, 81?
You can do it. You can do it. I have faith in you. You can do it. You sound strong.
Yeah, but my thing is this: even with y'all saying that y'all the criminal justice system. Say if I bring some on your show that could really dog out the criminal justice system, is anybody gonna do anything about it?
One person at a time, sweetheart. I can't talk for other people. I do my part. That's all I can say. And I'm just asking you to do yours. I can't talk about they, them, the masses. When I die, I know, I think a few friends will speak and say she did her part. So that's all I can do, sir, is speak for me. And I can't speak for anybody else. I want to stimulate your thoughts and stimulate you to do your part, okay?
Okay. All right.
Thank
no
you.
problem.
God bless you. All right. So do you have any other? Okay. Yeah,
one comment I was going to say is we were talking about children being raised by their grandparents or by someone else because mom or dad is in prison or mom or dad has a drug addiction or some other problem. We can't just figure one thing.
Right.
We have to provide treatment for people who have continue to cycle through the criminal system either because of drug addiction or some other kind of antisocial behavior or mental health issues. And I don't mean that they're necessarily that they're crazy, but they have schizophrenia or severe depression that just makes things very difficult and things spiral out of control. If we had adequate services set up for those for folks who needed them and wanted them, and there are more people who want them than people realize. I have all of my clients just about are asking me for help. Like, I have a problem, I keep going through this, I just need help. And unless their problem is really bad enough, or if they go off to prison, there's nothing I can get for them.
Hold
Because I
that
don't have
thought,
the money
Justin.
for it.
We have another call. Caller, you're on. Thank you for your call.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, pretty good. Speaking of the problems, with the children that's in Texas,
Yes, sir.
I think pretty much it started at home, like people say, and I had a situation a few weeks ago that I found out my son's mom was leaving him at home by himself overnight.
How old is your son that's being left home alone?
14.
How old?
14.
14.
14?
And then I called the CPS to see was his mom breaking the law by leaving him at home by himself. And CPS said, no, he's not. I mean, she's not breaking the law.
I think at 13 they can stay at home, but can you make some kind of arrangement, though, for her to leave him with you?
Yeah, sure, I could.
I mean, would she be willing to do that?
I'm sure she will.
Okay. Well, I would think that would be what you could do is let her know if she needs to spend the night with her fella or whatever she's doing or working all night, that maybe she should, because a 14-year-old, that's the dangerous age of getting in trouble. From where we sit as criminal defense lawyers, although he might be a good kid, home alone and a young imagination and a cell phone or computer with Twitter and Instagram is too tempting. He might not be a bad guy, but he might let a friend come over, or he might jump in a car with somebody. And before you know it, everybody's in jail for aggravated robbery with $30,000 bonds, and he might just been in the car. So 13, 14 is a very dangerous age for a boy to be home alone. With other teenagers, it's a dangerous age. He needs to be with you.
And I agree with you. And also, when I thought she was breaking the law, like I said, I did call CPS and.
Well, I would only see you calling CPS if you and her don't have a working relationship. If you feel that she would allow you to keep him on those days and you can not be judgmental, say she's going to spend the night with her dude, your part in really caring about the best interest of your son would not to be judgmental, would to say, please bring him over if you're going out with your girlfriends or you're sleeping with your boyfriend or you're sleeping with 5 boyfriends. That really wouldn't be your business. Well, your business and your concern should be is the best interest of your 14-year-old and say, have a good time, let him spend the night over here. Or maybe y'all can have a relationship where when you want to spend the night all night, then she won't spend the night all night. But the courts should only intervene and the government should intervene when we cannot handle our own problems. And if you can handle it with her, then we wouldn't need the government to do it, because you don't want the government in your life.
No,
You don't want the government in your life. You don't want CPS in your
not
life.
CPS.
That's why so many children are being raised by grandparents or aunts or cousins or uncles. I have a client now, good clients. I've had them for years. They do a little marijuana, do a few pills. I mean, nothing real serious, misdemeanors mostly. And a cop stopped them and they had a joint in the ashtray. Of course, that's not the way the cop said it. He said they just both happened to, one of them had the joint in her hand, the driver, and the husband just happened to have all of these illegal pills in his lap when the police stopped them. And they have a 1-year-old in the back. Do you know that they took these people's kids?
Yes.
And first of all, the woman had a prescription for the pills in the car. So it wasn't even like somewhere where you had to go get it from somewhere.
Right.
They did not maintain that as evidence. Oh, they just let that go with the car because the car was with some other relatives. Why wouldn't you say that? In Texas, it's legal to have, you don't have to have your pills in your bottle. I mean, you have a bottle, right? My client said the pills were on the floor. First of all, they had fallen out of the bottle at a different time. And there was no way they were smoking a joint in front of their kid. They said they did have a doobie in the ashtray, but they weren't smoking it. Of course, these happened to be undercover cops, narc cops. The cop himself, they didn't take the baby that night because the relatives were there, came and got the car and the baby. This cop took it upon himself. This was the Northeast Tactical Narcotics Squad, called CPS, and 3 weeks after this happened, from the first court date I made with them and the second one I made today, they came and took their baby from them. Made them do a drug test, and they had marijuana in their system because they smoked marijuana. And all she wants to know is, how can I get my baby back? And when she calls, they have to go through parenting classes and all that. They won't even return her phone call for parenting classes to set it up. So the baby is now at a cousin's house. Now, a 1-year-old doesn't know why they're away from their parents.
No.
And although marijuana might be bad, it's legal in many states, so it can't be too bad. And alcohol, I mean, people drink, and you have your kid. But this cop took it upon himself to call CPS. Now, they have CPS in their lives, and they're saying, well, Miss King, I call them every day. They won't return my phone calls. What am I supposed to do? So the government is supposed to really be concerned about her kid, and they're not even allowing her. She will go take parenting classes on her own without their referral, but she doesn't want to be in a class that she's paying for that they're not going to
Doesn't
accept.
count, right.
There was a similar case like that with a baby from Texas. The parent was taken away from the kid because of marijuana use. Baby died in foster care because of abuse and neglect.
And everything about this child of theirs, even in the police report, healthy, happy, normal size, and CPS has said the same thing. Behind a doggone doobie, a joint, I mean, give me a break. We have gone crazy with the government. The government has too much power. That's crazy.
Everybody thinks the government is their friend.
The government is not your friend.
When they want the government to do something for them, everyone thinks the government is their friend. Actually, the government is not your friend.
And they use the government against loved ones and each other, but that can be flipped the other way. So, I mean, we definitely have too much government in our lives. So, again, sir, I would just say all that to say, if you can talk to the lady and work it out, talk to her and work it out. If you can't, then get some kind of modification in court. You know, when a child is 12 or over, they can say which parent they want to live with. You know, you might want to deal with it that way. Yeah. If you're at home more than she is.
I'd say, you know, I'm actually a fan of the government, unless it's the Harris County District Attorney's Office, or maybe one of several law enforcement agencies in the Harris County. But the problem, I think, in that situation is that one individual police officer who decided to inject himself in from a personal reason. And I've had prosecutors do this. When I beat them at trials, when they realized that our client is not in the United States, is not a U.S. citizen. I had clients who were legal permanent residents, lived here 25 years, paid all their taxes, had families here. They were in custody. When we beat them at trial, before they had to go back to the jail to get processed out, the district attorney realized they didn't have an immigration hold on them and would run off, get a hold put on them, and then they would get deported when we beat their charges.
Just being vindictive.
And, yeah.
Just being vindictive.
And that police officer did the same thing. He or she knew this isn't going to be that big of a case, but I'm going to get these people.
And guess what? These people don't get time served and a damn fine. What the?
They're going to spend way more time fighting to get their child back.
Right, and that's what they don't want to come to court. They don't want to defer it. They don't. There's not even a good stop. They're saying that they saw him going to a dope house. This is where the grandmother, they were visiting their relatives. That's why the relatives came right there and took the baby and the car. So they weren't buying dope. They said they tore their house up looking for crack. I mean, the car up looking for crack. There was no crack in there.
That's that same thing I keep saying, that mean spirit.
But the mean spirit is everywhere. It's in law enforcement.
It's in law enforcement.
In older people in Cyprus that are just being mean for no reason because they know that there's nothing about Katrina about that. They're just being mean and racist. But what we don't understand, the infestation in society, is that those same mean spirits you're putting in these children, and they have guns.
Yes.
That's what's hurtful.
Well, and I think it's in all of us.
Yes.
I think
but we're acting on it. You know,
well,
like with words.
This gives us a place to do it where we don't have someone calling us out. We get to create a screen name or something for ourselves and put it out there. Or we get to put on a uniform, like a costume with a badge and a gun, and then I get to do things to you that person couldn't do to me. Right. You know, because I have the authority to do that, and that's the problem, is the meanness, what allows us to get that meanness out.
And in society, we have to have some type of stop-gap measures, and it used to be, we're being told to wrap up, but it used to be that the people in the road could do that. It used to be our politicians or our judges, because people still think of them as the person where justice can be served. And it's not like that anymore, because sometimes those people have the same mean spirit, or do not want to cross their mean-spirited friends that are DAs and police officers. So where do we turn? We have talked about a lot of problems. As a society, we can vote. We can know who our politicians are. You can look at my website where I'm trying to explain who they are. You can participate in the process by knowing who your judges are. Do you vote? Those callers who called in, do you vote? Do you know who you voted for? We have 37 criminal judges down there. Did you vote for them? Did you look at their opponent versus them to see, or no? Or did you just let those people do what they want to do? That's the voice that you have. So, and you can talk to your politicians about some of these meaningful things instead of the bullcorn that we always ask them, okay? So I hope I've stimulated your thought. I hope my guests, thank you, Equator Turner, Justin, and Victoria, for participating in this discussion of problems we're having with teenagers and guns and society and problems in society in general. So thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King, And hopefully we'll see you next week where we give you another great show. We have someone that should be talking about, next week our topic is going to be people in family court that also have criminal cases. All righty. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime.